This is a very, very quick overview. It's just an overview of chemical bonding for GCSE. There are three types of bonding. First type of bonding is metallic bonding. If you imagine all of the particles that you've drawn a million times in your solids, liquids and gases diagrams, imagine all the particles in a solid all together. You've got loads of all these electrons all dotted in between the atoms there in this kind of electron cloud, like a sea of electrons, and the electrons can flow through this great big structure, so you actually get electrical conductivity. The electrons can flow through, which is why metals, hence metallic bonding, it's why metals are conductors. The second one is ionic bonding. Ionic bonding is all about lending and borrowing electrons to achieve a full outer shell. Remember the magic number 2882, which I've mentioned in other videos, to remember the number of electrons you can fit into each shell. All ionically bonded chemicals form crystalline solids, and once they're thrown into a solution, generally they all fall apart and dissolve because they're weakly bound. Our last type is covalent bonds. These are the particularly interesting ones. In covalent bonds, there's an awful lot of sharing of electrons going on, and this sharing of electrons is done to achieve a full outer shell. I've given a couple of examples here. Here's water. Water is H2O. So here we have two hydrogens, we have one oxygen, and to show what's happening with the electrons in the outer shell of each, I've drawn a red cross for the hydrogen electron, and I've done blue dots for the oxygen's electrons. Oxygen has 6 electrons. It would really like to borrow 2. Hydrogen has 1 electron and would really like to borrow another electron. So as you can see here, our hydrogen on this side has managed to share an electron with the oxygen, and the oxygen is sharing one back, and the hydrogen on the other side is also sharing one of its electrons, and well, its only electron rather, and the oxygen is sharing electron back again. So both hydrogens have 2 electrons in their outer shell. The outer shell is the first shell. Remember, in the first shell you can only get 2 electrons. Oxygen, however, oxygen is in the second period. The full outer shell in the second period is 8 electrons, but oxygen's only got 6 to start with. I've represented those with blue dots. So oxygen starts off with 6 blue dots, that's 6 electrons, and it's shared 1 electron with each of the hydrogens, and each of the hydrogens has shared 1 electron back again. So as we count them off now, the oxygen is kind of an illusion for this poor little oxygen here, but it feels like it's got 8 electrons dotted around the outside of it. I've done another one here for carbon dioxide. It looks a bit more complicated, but it really isn't. We've got 2 oxygens and 2 carbons. Oxygen normally has 6 electrons. Here we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the same on that side because it's an oxygen, so it would have 6. And carbon only has 4 electrons. I've drawn the carbon's electrons on with little red crosses for our dot and cross diagram. I've used different colours because it makes it easier for you to follow it, but you can do it just with dots and crosses. And if you count up the way that they've been shared between them, the oxygen has 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons in its outer shell. If we look at the other oxygen, it's got 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons again in its outer shell, so that's happy too. And we have to have a look at what the carbon's doing, and again carbon has 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons in its outer shell.